The automatic doors hissed open as the old man stepped into the pristine marble-floored lobby of Southridge National Bank. He moved slowly, leaning on a worn wooden cane, a large burlap sack slung awkwardly over his shoulder. His coat was faded, sleeves fraying, and the brim of his hat was bent like it had weathered more than its fair share of storms. Behind the front desk, the receptionist froze mid-sip of her coffee. "Sir, can I help you?" she said, eyes darting to the security guard nearby. The old man didn't answer. He looked around, soaking in the polished brass chandeliers, the sleek granite counters, the busy murmurs of professionals in sharp suits. He adjusted the sack on his shoulder. It made a low clinking sound. Then he spoke, calmly, but firmly. "I'm here to see the branch manager. Tell him the owner's arrived." The receptionist blinked. Laughed nervously. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" The old man leaned closer. "I said I own this place. Tell your manager." She covered her mouth to stifle a laugh. The security guard was already approaching, hand on the radio clipped to his shoulder. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," the guard said. "I'm not leaving," the old man replied. Now people were starting to notice. A few customers stared. A suited man at the counter chuckled and whispered something to his colleague. "What is he, some kind of senile veteran?" someone muttered. The security guard motioned to escort the old man out, but before he could reach him, a tall, thin woman in a navy pantsuit stepped through a side door. Her ID badge shimmered under the fluorescent light. "Branch manager, Melanie Crowder." "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice clipped. "He says he owns the bank," the receptionist said, clearly amused. Crowder turned to the old man, her smile icy. "Sir, I think you're mistaken. This is a private institution. We're happy to assist you with your account, but—" "I don't have an account," the man cut her off. She raised a brow. "Then I'm afraid I can't help you." He stared at her for a long second, then nodded once. "I'll wait. You'll come around soon enough." She turned to the guard. "Get him out." And just like that, the old man was shoved back through the glass doors. His cane clicked sharply on the sidewalk as he steadied himself. But he didn't leave. He took a seat on the nearest bench. He set the sack on his lap and rested both hands on top. And waited. Inside, laughter resumed. Crowder shook her head. "You really never know what you'll get in this city." But as the hours passed, he didn't leave. And that sack? It was more than just burlap and noise. It held something none of them could have imagined. By noon, the sun was glaring down on the sidewalk. But the old man didn't flinch. He sat still, back straight, eyes focused on the building like it owed him something. Inside the bank, Melanie Crowder had other priorities. A delegation from corporate was visiting that afternoon, and image was everything. She pulled aside a young assistant manager, Jeremy. "I need that man gone. Now. He's scaring the clients." Jeremy peeked through the glass. "He's just sitting there." "Exactly," Crowder snapped. "Like a protest. And don't let that bag of his fool you. He's probably homeless." Jeremy hesitated. "What if he's just confused? He could be a vet, maybe." Crowder cut him off with a look. "Then the city can deal with him. Call someone." Minutes later, a squad car rolled up. 2 officers stepped out, one young eager, the other, older and tired-looking. They approached the bench cautiously. The old man looked up and tipped his hat. "You folks here to arrest me?" he asked calmly. The younger cop chuckled. "No, sir. Just checking in. You've been sitting here a long time. Folks inside say you're causing a disturbance." "Didn't raise my voice. Didn't break a thing," he said. "I just came to claim what's mine." The older cop raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" The man tapped his cane gently. "The bank." The young cop laughed out loud. The old man didn't join him. The older cop looked at the sack beside the man's feet. "You carrying something dangerous in there?" "Only if money offends you." That gave them pause. The older cop gave a subtle nod to his partner. "Just keep it civil, all right? Don't block the entrance." The old man nodded once. Always do. Inside, Crowder was fuming. I want him gone. Gone, she hissed. Her assistant glanced around nervously. Maybe we should just let him talk to someone from legal. Legal? She scoffed. He's a streetwalker with a fantasy. Not worth the ink. She strode into the lobby, high heels tapping like gunshots. Everyone, please ignore the man outside, she announced. He's been handled. But he hadn't been. Because every 30 minutes, a different customer paused to glance at him. Some laughed. Some frowned. But none walked up. Not yet. Until 2:45 p.m. A young black woman in a gray suit approached the bench. Her heels slowed as she took in the man, the sack, the cane. Excuse me, she said gently. You all right, sir? He looked at her, his expression softening. I will be. She sat beside him. You said you own the place? He nodded. Not just this one, he added. The original one. Back before they changed the name. Her eyes widened a little. Southridge used to be McAllen Trust, he finished for her. She paused. My grandfather had an account there. The old man chuckled. Then he probably knew my name. She tilted her head. And what would that be? The old man extended a callous hand. Thomas Elijah McAllen. She didn't laugh. Not like the others. She froze. But before she could speak again, Crowder burst out the doors, flanked by 2 security guards. I told you, she barked, then stopped short. The young woman stood up. Ms. Crowder, I'm Rachel McIntyre, Associate Director of State Compliance. Crowder blinked. Rachel gestured to the old man. I came to observe this branch today. I wasn't expecting to find this. Crowder stammered. He said he owns the bank. Rachel folded her arms. And what if he does? Crowder's face flushed. He's a fraud. He's been harassing my staff. Sitting out here with a dirty sack and some made-up story. Rachel turned to Thomas. Mr. McAllen, would you allow me to see what's in the bag? Thomas gave her a long look. Then slowly, carefully, he opened it. And pulled out a folder thick, worn, with papers yellowed by time. Crowder scoffed. Rachel didn't. She took the folder. And as her eyes scanned the first document, her face changed. Rachel McIntyre held the folder in her hands like it was something sacred. Her eyes scanned the first page. Then the second. Then a notarized deed dated 1957. Crowder leaned in with a sneer. That's probably something he found in a flea market. Rachel didn't respond. Her brow furrowed. Mr. McAllen, she asked quietly, is this your signature here? He nodded once. Same one I used to sign the Articles of Incorporation. Back when this was still a family business. Rachel turned a page. Her expression hardened. Crowder was getting impatient. All right, enough of this charade, she snapped. Security! 2 men in navy uniforms stepped forward. One reached for Thomas's arm. But Rachel raised a hand. Don't touch him. Crowder stared. What do you mean, don't touch him? He's loitering. Trespassing. Lying to federal authorities. Rachel stood her ground. This man presented legal ownership documentation for the property you're standing in. Crowder laughed. Oh, come on. He walked in here with a sack and a cane and said he owns a bank. You're seriously entertaining this? Thomas remained silent. His silence was louder than any shout. Rachel flipped through another section of the folder. Her voice, now sharper. According to these documents, Thomas Elijah McAllen inherited full controlling shares of McAllen Trust in 1974. The bank was bought out in 1992, but the title to the land this branch stands on never fully transferred. Crowder froze. I'm sorry, what? Rachel turned to her. This building may legally still be owned by Mr. McAllen, which would mean every transaction made on these premises for the past 30 years might be in violation. The silence hit like a thunderclap. The customers in the lobby had stopped. A few employees had gathered quietly behind the glass doors. One whispered, "Is this real?" Crowder turned red. Then white. Then furious. "This is absurd. I'm calling legal. I'm calling the board. You have no idea who I am." Thomas spoke for the first time since she'd stormed out. "Neither do you." Crowder stepped forward. "You're a nobody. A relic. A bitter old man playing pretend with dust-covered papers. I don't care who you think you are, but you don't belong here." The words hung in the air. Heavy. Ugly. Rachel's eyes flared. "Miss Crowder, I suggest you stop speaking." But Crowder wasn't done. No, I'm done playing along. This is a bank. Not a movie. This isn't some civil rights story or feel-good redemption fantasy. This is business. And this man? He's in the way. She turned to security again. "Escort him off the premises. If he resists, detain him until police arrive." Rachel stepped forward. "I am the state compliance officer. You will not lay a finger on this man." But it was too late. One of the guards grabbed Thomas's shoulder. And that's when it happened. Thomas reached into the sack again, not quickly, not threatening, but with precision. He pulled out a second folder. And a phone. Then he handed the phone to Rachel. "Press play," he said simply. She did. A video began to play. Grainy footage. An old deposition. A boardroom. Suits. Papers shuffled. Then a voice came through. Clear. Authority. "This building, including the land it sits on, shall remain in the possession of Mr. Thomas McCallan unless a formal title transfer is completed by both parties." Another voice argued. "But we assumed it transferred with the brand." Assumptions. The first voice snapped. "Don't hold up in federal court." Crowder's mouth parted. A whisper escaped. "Oh my God!" Thomas nodded slowly. "Now you see." Rachel looked up. "Mr. McCallan, do you have the original court order?" Thomas tapped the second folder. Page 5. She opened it. Stamped. Signed. Sealed. Crowder backed away like it burned her. "This can't be real. This can't be." Rachel turned to her. "It is. And you've just assaulted a legal property owner." Crowder shook her head, stumbling over words. He didn't say that when he came in, he didn't announce. He shouldn't have had to." Rachel snapped. "Respect isn't conditional on your assumptions." At that moment, the branch's regional director walked in, briefcase in hand, expecting a quiet visit. What he walked into was a storm. And Thomas? He just leaned on his cane and waited. Because this wasn't over yet. Not even close. The glass doors barely closed behind the regional director before the tension in the room shifted. He paused, confused. "What's going on?" Rachel McIntyre turned toward him, still holding the court-stamped folder. Her voice was steady, but sharp. "Mr. Whitaker, this is Thomas Elijah McCallan. He's the original landowner of this branch. And possibly several others." Whitaker blinked. "I don't understand." Rachel handed him the documents. "Then you need to." Crowder stepped in, her voice rising with panic. "Sir, this is some kind of con. That man has been harassing the staff all day, saying wild things, refusing to leave." Whitaker held up a hand. "Enough, Melanie." He turned to Thomas, who remained calm, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. "Sir, is this true?" Thomas nodded. "I didn't come here to stir trouble. I came to see what had become of what my family built." Rachel added, "And based on these filings, he never legally relinquished ownership of this property." Whitaker's fingers tightened around the folder. He looked around. Employees watching from behind teller windows. Customers frozen mid-transaction. Even the guards weren't sure what to do now. "Mr. McCallan," Whitaker said slowly. "Why now? Why after all these years?" Thomas gave a tired smile. "I buried my wife last spring. First time I'd been back to this city in over 20 years. drove past this place and saw her name was gone. Thought maybe it was time to look into what they'd taken without asking. Crowder scoffed. This is ridiculous. Even if he owned the land once, he didn't maintain it, didn't pay property taxes, didn't. Rachel shut her down with a single sentence. He did. Crowder froze. I checked while we were speaking. Rachel added. All records paid. On time. Every year. Under a trust. Rachel looked at Thomas, almost in awe. You never gave up, did you? No, he said simply. Just waited. Whitaker pulled out his phone and stepped aside, clearly calling legal. Crowder looked like she might pass out. She turned to Thomas, face trembling with forced arrogance. You really expect us to believe you just walked in here with proof, and everything goes your way? Thomas tilted his head. You believed I was a joke 5 minutes ago. Now you believe I'm a threat. So maybe belief isn't your strength. Whitaker came back, face pale. Our legal team just confirmed. The building is in legal limbo. No final title transfer ever occurred. That makes Mr. McCallan the default property owner. Crowder's knees buckled slightly. You've got to be kidding me. Whitaker looked at her, voice cold. You physically ordered your staff to manhandle a legal landowner. You mocked him in front of customers. And you did all of this while a state compliance officer stood right there. He turned to Rachel. I assume there will be a report? Oh, there already is. Rachel replied. Then she looked at Thomas. Sir, would you like to file charges? Thomas paused. Looked around. All the eyes that once looked down on him now looked up. Not with pity, but with fear. No, he said. Crowder exhaled. But he wasn't done. I don't want charges. I want change. He looked directly at her. You treat people like they're beneath you. Like you own this place. But you don't. Not the building. Not the people. Not the right. Crowder opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Because the next words weren't from Thomas. They were from a woman behind the counter. Sir, she said, stepping forward timidly. My grandmother told me stories about the McCallan Trust. Said your family gave out loans to black families when no one else would. Thomas nodded softly. She was probably right. The woman looked at Crowder. My family still lives in that house. Now the shift was real. Employees stepped forward. One by one. Not to challenge him, but to thank him. Crowder stood paralyzed, watching the controls slip through her fingers. And Thomas? He finally stood up. Slow. Steady. Cane in hand. And said the words no one expected. I'm not here to take back what's mine. Pause. I'm here to see who still deserves to keep it. The next morning, the lobby of Southridge National Bank was silent. No music. No chatter. Just eyes everywhere. Because news traveled fast. A black man with a cane and a sack had walked in and reminded everyone who really held the keys. Local media showed up before the doors even opened. Cameras, boom mics, whispers. Inside, Thomas McCallan sat in a chair near the lobby window. Not as a protester. Not as a loiterer. But as the legal owner of the land beneath their feet. Whitaker, the regional director, stood beside him. Stiff. Professional. We've reviewed the documentation thoroughly, Mr. McCallan, he said. You are, indeed, the rightful owner of this branch building. Thomas nodded once. I'm aware. Rachel McIntyre, the compliance officer, stood nearby, her presence quiet but powerful. And as of this morning, she added, your ownership has been formally re-acknowledged and logged with the state. Whitaker cleared his throat. Which brings us to staffing matters. He glanced toward the hallway. Melanie Crowder appeared, tight bun, trembling jaw, a manila envelope in her hand. She was no longer barking orders. No longer smirking behind the safety of her title. She walked like someone heading to a funeral. Her own. She approached Thomas slowly. Mr. McCallan, she began. He didn't look at her. Just stared forward. She faltered. I want to apologize. I didn't know who you were. If I had known. He finally turned to her. If you had known? She nodded quickly. Yes. I would have treated you differently. That was all he needed. He stood, slow but steady. So it's not about right or wrong. It's about rank. She swallowed. No, I didn't mean. But it was too late. Thomas nodded to Whitaker. She doesn't belong in my building. Whitaker turned emotionless. Ms. Crowder, your employment with Southridge National Bank is hereby terminated, effective immediately. The envelope in her hands dropped to the floor. Security approached. And this time? She didn't call them. She was them. As they escorted her out, whispers followed like shadows. Thomas didn't watch her go. He turned instead to Rachel. There's one more thing, he said. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Yes? He reached into the sack one last time. Pulled out a faded, folded blueprint. This land was supposed to have a community lending center. We built it in 1960. They knocked it down in 94. I want it back. Whitaker blinked. Excuse me? Thomas looked him dead in the eye. You want to keep leasing this land? You rebuild what mattered. No more denying poor folks just because their credit score isn't perfect. No more gatekeeping opportunity. Rachel smiled, proud. Whitaker nodded slowly. Consider it done. As reporters gathered outside, one shouted, Mr. McCallan! What do you plan to do with the bank now that it's yours again? He paused at the doorway. Turned back one last time. I don't want the money. A beat. I want the memory. Then he stepped outside. The wind caught the brim of his old hat. And the city, once blind to his presence, now couldn't take their eyes off him. And he came in with a sack. They saw a burden. But what he carried was legacy.